Alright, so for today's video we're going to have a little bit of fun. Temperatures outside have gotten really cold, and so what I've decided to do for the winter is to actually grow some grass indoors, and some different grass varieties, have a little bit of fun, see what works, see what I like, and show you the differences between different cool season grass varieties. I'm going to have a lot of fun with this over the winter. This is today just sort of a introductory video to what I'm going to be doing with this over the winter. I'm down here in my workshop, aka Everyday DIY Guys studio. So again, we're just going to have a little bit of fun today. Alright, so I've got three different grass varieties here that have gone ahead and grown in these different containers, and I just planted these directly from seed. They are each a different variety of cool season grass, and so over the course of the next few weeks or even months into the winter, I'm going to examine these different grass varieties with a little bit more detail, as well as seeing how they adapt to different growing conditions and how they propagate and sort of expand. All right, so the first grass variety is perennial ryegrass. All of these different plantings were done about 3 weeks ago, and perennial ryegrass was the first to germinate as expected. It actually started to see growth in I think 3 or 4 days. So it's a really quick germinating grass type. As these grass samples grow out, they'll get a little bit more. These are just still seedlings, so it's hard to really differentiate between the different grass varieties until they're fully grown and rooted. So this is very early on in their growing process. Again, a little under 3 weeks. But as you get in here, you can actually see the roots growing down, these little white, almost hairy looking things that are growing down into the soil. And these actually go down pretty deep, quite a few inches here, all the way to the bottom. So it's pretty cool to see, really, within 3 weeks. And then we'll get in here and look a little bit closer at the grass blades. Again, these are very young. So until they kind of fill out, you can't really tell the difference, especially between perennial ryegrass and tall fescue, which is the next variety I'll show you. So this is a tall fescue sample. You can actually see I've cut I've done the first mowing, if you will, with a pair of scissors, so you can kind of see down in there on the soil a little grass clipping. But so this is tall fescue. Again, not much to differentiate at this point between this and perennial rye. Very similar structure so far at the seedling level. As these grow, we'll examine them a little bit further to see how they're different, the different grass varieties. But again, as you see, good root growth that's starting to almost as strong as the perennial ryegrass variety, growing very healthy down through the container. Maybe not quite to the bottom yet, but pretty close. So very similar so far to the look and texture of perennial ryegrass. So our last sample here is Kentucky bluegrass, and as you can see, not quite as full or nearly as full as the other two varieties at this point. Again, we're a little under 3 weeks into the growth of these specimens, and Kentucky bluegrass tends to germinate a lot slower than other grass varieties. It takes a little bit longer to germinate and grow in. So it'll be interesting to see how this grass variety grows out over the course of the next few weeks and months. But as you can see, the soil or the roots in the soil aren't as noticeable. There's a few of them here. If you kind of zoom in here, there's one there, but certainly not the abundance that we saw in the other two varieties. The top growth isn't nearly as tall. So this is definitely a slower growing grass variety as expected. When you seed this in your lawn, typically you don't see any growth for 2 to 3 weeks. at minimum, whereas usually you'll see perennial ryegrass come up in a few days. Kentucky bluegrass tends to be a lot slower in the germination and seedling phase. So we'll see how this fills in. Again, a lot of this might have to do with the fact that I might not have put enough seed in this area, but we'll see how this fills in. I'm kind of interested to see how it spreads and grows, and especially among the different grass varieties. It's kind of an interesting experiment to see, but definitely not the root growth that we had with the other varieties. Oh, and I almost forgot. I'm actually growing a fourth planting. This is actually a blend of the 3 grass varieties. So what I have in here is Kentucky bluegrass, perennial ryegrass, and tall fescue. So this is what would typically be in most cool season lawns, is a variety of different grass types all mixed together. So I wanted to do a sample of this as well, just to kind of have an example of what a typical northern lawn would look like with the mixture of different grass varieties, and see if we can actually see the difference as this grows out and gets thicker and more established. If we can actually see the different varieties represented here. It's a little bit too early for that now, but so this is the fourth planting that I have that we'll examine over the winter months. So again, just to wrap up, this is just sort of almost an introductory video to what we'll be doing with these different grass plantings over the course of the winter, just to keep my entertainment with not being able to get out and do any lawn work. I'll be able to experiment with these different plantings, but I think we'll have a lot of fun with this and sort of see what happens over the course of the winter months without being able to fire up my lawnmower. At least we'll get to have a little bit of fun and see what these do. I'm gonna, as these grow out, replant them into bigger pots and see how each variety expands, and the speed at which it does, and all sorts of different things we can probably do with these. So it'll be fun. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so, because I will definitely be following up on videos like this. This is just a part one sort of introduction to what I'm doing with this experiment over the winter. And if you want to see the videos as these plantings do expand and grow and get thicker, and sort of see the difference between the growth of perennial ryegrass, tall fescue, and Kentucky bluegrass, I think you'll want to subscribe and see those. So thanks again for tuning into another Everyday DIY Guy video, and I will see you next time.